welcome to you. This is Monique Bradley, called Monique Bradley, tōku ingoa, he kai kōrero aho. I'm Monique. I'm a storyteller, so are you, and welcome to Uncovering Authenticity. I am absolutely delighted to have today's guest in the studio. She is vibrant, she is dynamic, she is part of New Zealand music history, and she's beautiful on the inside and out. Please welcome Megan Alatini.
Oh my goodness, I need to get you to do my introductions all the time.
I just want to do that when you walk into a room.
Like seriously, when you said that, I was like, huh? That's
who
me.
is this woman?
It's me. When you said beautiful, I was like, oh,
You
I've got the right
are
concealer
beautiful
today.
Yeah, you look great.
But, you know, on the inside of that is the part that counts the most.
That's
then I'm
it.
all for it. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
Welcome to my studio. Now,
Cool.
I'm so excited because I have a story.
Tell me the
Okay,
story. I love a story.
Back in the day, I worked in a shopping centre, Johnsonville Shopping Centre.
I know
in Wellington.
Johnsonville.
You know Johnsonville.
Joe Cotton is very much from
That's
Johnsonville.
it. And every day when I worked in London bookshops, which was next to the record store where Joe worked in, Sounds, that's it. I used to walk past this gorgeous woman in Sounds, and I used to go, it was Jo, and I used to look at her and go, oh, she's just so beautiful. I wish I had her confidence. And she was an absolute idol of mine, see, telegraphing that. And then, of course, you guys were connected with the TV show.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember watching that going, oh, these guys are just amazing. They're so inspirational for me. One day I hope I can do something like this. But I really struggled with my confidence. And I just thought you guys were history makers. And then I had another friend, her name's Tia Minnick. Shout out Tia, I love you, you're amazing. We used to sing in a band together as well.
Awesome.
And I remember Tia used to do some dance teaching in Porirua.
Cool.
And we were talking, that's it. And I said, oh, how's things going? And she said, oh, you're really good. She said, oh, Megan from TrueBliss was in our dance studio because your daughter used to dance in Porirua as well, right?
She did indeed. This is crazy.
So this is so many common threads.
Honestly, when they say, what do they say? 7, 8, 9, I don't know how many degrees of separation. We know in New Zealand it's like 2 or 3. Let's be real.
It's a village.
That's why I'm always like, oh my God, I'm so glad I've been on my best behaviour most of the time.
Most of the time. And so
because
so
of interconnections.
That's what it's about. It's the common thread.
Oh, it is. And just to reference the areas that you've just spoken of, I mean, I never knew Jo when she was in the Wellington region, but I've so much love for her. And isn't it funny how you viewed her as this beautiful, which she is, confident person, which she was not, who was so super talented and still is, and probably if she was sitting here right now would say to you, oh my God, I was so shit scared all the time and I didn't think I looked good at all. And how though, with that, she did have the confidence to be able to stand in front of a public audience, as I did, to kind of, without knowing, put yourself forward for something that was so unknown at the time.
That's right. Nobody had ever done TV like this before.
And much like you, I remember seeing Jo and thinking, okay, anyone that wears that type of headwear with bunny ears and bindies and glitter and the big flower and stuff, that person has to really be so good with themselves to just... You know, it was before body positive images and messaging.
Right. She was
and
years
here she
ahead of the
was,
game.
you know, she was wearing the crop tops, and I know sometimes she cringe about that now, but back then she was just doing her own thing. She rocked it. And then she opened her mouth.
Yeah.
And you would go, wow, what an incredible voice. And she's intelligent and she's witty. So I so can understand why you look to her as this 100% moment. And then for me, with Porirua, my first home was bought in that Porirua area. My husband and I, at the time, we purchased our first home in Camborne, just down the road from Plimmerton. Our daughter went to Plimmerton School. She did go to dance studios in Porirua. In fact, they gave me a little part-time job doing a little bit of vocal coaching and stuff. And that became a really beautiful community unit for us. So... Girl, we are connected.
We're whānau.
Yes,
we're
go
whānau.
the 04.
And then coming up here, obviously, Jo and I and my partner Pete, who's our producer, we end up singing in the same band. And I remember meeting you actually at, we were opening a bar on K Road. We were the opening act for this bar.
Love a bit of K Road.
You came in and I went, oh, That's Megan. And so my Wellington girl, so I'm up on stage being super confident, but my Wellington girl came back going, oh, that's Megan. Don't even look her in the eyes. She's so beautiful. Look at her. Look at her. And you were so vibrant. And you looked at me and you went, hello, darling. I've heard all about you. And I just went... and kind of ugly laughed. And I remember this because you brought in so much joy to the room.
Oh, thank you so much. You know,
it was magic.
I do feel like I've been so blessed with people and places and spaces. And K Road was actually a very fond area for my family and I, because I'm not too sure if you know or not, but on the corner of K Road and Simon Street, which is now the Rock Shop, you know, they've taken over that whole corner. That was actually one of my mum's braiding whare, where we had the braids. And
that you guys?
That was our family, the Amandla braiding whare. And girlfriend, I'm sure you can imagine, we saw all things and everything from in the middle of the night to first thing in the morning, come and see to my fro, all walks of life. And again, it was just an extension of us and them, and together we just kept growing our whānau. So, and of course I love family bar and saloon and all that jazz.
Yep.
So again, K Road, I spent so much of my time there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's the before TrueBliss? What was the origin story of Megan?
Yeah. So before TrueBliss, I'll take us quite a way back if you don't mind. Born and raised in South Africa in the Cape Town region, just north of Cape Town, in a small country seaside town called George, to mum and dad, mum Barbara, dad Daniel, and both my parents really heavily involved in the political scene at the time.
Oh, wow.
For people that don't know, during the late 70s and 80s, unfortunately, South Africa had a regime known as the apartheid system. Yeah. Legal system at that, where based on your skin color, your cultural background, you were really separated from each other. And so my family and I, we grew up being known as coloureds. You're half black or half from a tribe, part white, maybe English, maybe German. And in my case, we are Khoisan and I think a bit of Xhosa and English and German. And so I was raised in this really tumultuous, turmoil-filled society where the political unrest was rife. My family would be involved in rioting campaigns and freedom walks in the 70s and 80s. 80s for me, as a 9, 10, 11-year-old, thought my parents were having parties every weekend, but really what they were doing was getting ready to fight for their rights. And I have 3 other siblings, Monique, Miguel, Sebastian, and Meryl. And that was the life we knew. We didn't know that it was any different elsewhere, because at the time South Africa was cut off from the rest of the world. There were sanctions put out against South Africa. So you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And but my parents, of course, had been from a different upbringing and lifestyle prior to that coming into be. And so they really fought for human rights, but also knew that they wanted to be in a more culturally fair and equal society, which South Africa wasn't at the time. My dad was a prominent rugby player who could never don the Springbok jersey, even though he was the man back then, because he was coloured. And so Dad chose New Zealand based on the fact that there was a little country far away that the public stood up for the rights of South Africans and said, we're not going to play the Springboks unless it's a team of merit. And, you know, there were all sorts of riots in New Zealand, which I didn't know about, fighting for South Africans. And my dad said, we're going to that little country that fought for our rights, and it gave us a voice when we couldn't. And we were like, where? New Zealand? What? Knew nothing other than what we saw in little travel brochures. And after 2 years of trying, and luckily my dad received a job offer to work either in New Zealand, Australia or Germany, and he said, we're going to that country that fought for our rights. And that's how we landed in New Zealand in 1987.
That's extraordinary. That's absolutely extraordinary. When you're talking about these freedom walks and things like that, I know it's your normal. I've never experienced that, and I know it's your normal. But what was it when you young and you're involved in those sorts of things, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, even now when I think about it and I want to talk about it, I think, don't ask me that question because I get so emotional, and it's obviously...
It's sensitive, yeah. It was big. It was big.
But you don't know it at the time. You know, I think it's later that you go, hang on a minute, the rest of the world don't operate that. And at the time, even as a child, you know that something's not right. Like, how come those kids get to go to the really lovely school with all of the facilities and all of the flash malls and things, and it says whites only, and I go there and I'm not allowed to be there? Like, that feels wrong. Or why is there a leisure centre and it's a coloured community only, and down the road are shanty towns and just things that's not set up well, and well, that's for the black community. No matter what age you are, you know that doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem fair, and why that is you can't quite understand in your child mind. And then you move to a country like New Zealand, which is multicultural and all of these languages.
Yeah, really diverse.
Really, really diverse. And you go, oh my gosh, in my class there are white kids and there is a white teacher and they're nice to me. And you're waiting for it to turn and it doesn't. And you go, oh, well, that was really, really wrong. I have a place. I have a voice. I'm allowed to be included in beautiful things. And I guess that's probably where early on my fight for freedom and equal rights, and why I'm such an advocate for diversity and inclusion and making sure people really are embraced and allowed to be their authentic self.
Yeah.
I guess that has been really ingrained in me without even knowing at the time.
Of course.
From a very, very young age, because I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that adverse treatment.
And of being excluded.
Being so excluded. And my parents really, even then, always made sure that we knew that you belong. You can do and be anything you want to be. Don't ever let people push you out. And in New Zealand, I have such gratitude because it was here that our eyes really opened up to embrace your culture, speak your language, the very things we could not do. That whole framework of who's your whānau, what's your pepeha. I was like, I better find out about my river, my mountain, you know. And so my gratitude for that multicultural involvement and integration in New Zealand is why I do what I do these days. Wow. And I'm just like, D&I through and through, people first, and whatever else comes with that, the music, the sports, the entertainment, and that's a bonus. But I feel like my passion for people is because of that adverse experience.
Megan, that's just incredible. I just to reference this or to support that, I just have been to Blenheim over the weekend.
Love Blenheim, and I'm going to take a drink now.
Oh, please, okay. yeah. Rehydrate. I went to Blenheim because my iwi, which is Ngāti Rārua, there was an exhibition of our tribal history at the library down in Blenheim.
You love stuff like that.
It was so cool. But I grew up, in both Te Ao Pākehā and Te Ao Māori, and I identified more as Pākehā than Māori. Sure. That's been my entire life. I was brought up more on that side. I remember going to a marae when I was about 6 or 7 for a tangi, and one of my cousins ran out from the wharenui and goes, "Man, you fellas have got a flash car," like that. And I just went, "Who are you? What is this?"
Yeah.
You know, like it was really foreign to me. But going to the exhibition and seeing these incredible people some of whom, like my great-grandfather, I'd never seen a photo of him before, and finding out that he was a JP, that he came from an era where they weren't allowed to speak their own language, that some of the relatives of that generation weren't allowed to learn to read or write because they were kept in slavery.
Yeah, and even changed their name so that it sounded more English. I had a best friend who was a Wehone originally, but felt the need to change it to Wee John just to, the language was beaten out of them up north. And I remember hearing similarities in terms of when, for whatever reason, you are pushed outside of your culture zone. Wow. So I can understand when you say, that was so different for you and it was so unfamiliar to you too,
it's
right? And it's like,
I'm,
but actually it's a part of you.
That's exactly right. And I'm looking through 2024 eyes at images on the wall, which were quite beautiful, and I love it, but it was quite shocking because it's a reality I don't know, and which is why I can't even imagine, that we're not talking with you 200 years ago. No. We're talking about in your lifetime.
Yeah.
You've experienced this. We're roughly the same age. Yeah. I'm shocked. I saw one image even of it was a school photo, and it was the most beautiful thing, and it was all these beautiful little brown faces at the Wairopa native school.
Native school.
And then my auntie who was with me, she leaned over and she leant into my shoulder and she said, "See that little girl in the front row?" She said, "That's your mother."
Oh, gosh.
And I got really emotional because
I can imagine
my mother being called a native.
Yeah.
So that's why I have real empathy for your story.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Because I can't even imagine with my 2024 eyes.
And it's something that doesn't leave you. I mean,
I bet.
Even though every time I do an interview, I go, I'm not going to cry. I know this may come up because it's so real. A part of me, right? It doesn't leave you. But also what I've learned is, and maybe when you're new in that discovery, I can encourage, how do we flip the script?
Yeah.
Like, how do I turn the term coloured into something more positive?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm of mixed heritage. Yes, there's English and tribal and all sorts. And I am proud to have that interracial mix in me that makes me coloured. I'm going to take a positive spin to that. What is it that is positive connotations that we can take from the word native? It is original. It is from that area. It's from that land. Spin it and make it more positive so that instead of it always having that negative drawback, well, that native school is amazing. My mum is from there and we're going to uphold that culture even more so.
Beautiful. Mic drop. Right? Mic drop. Smashed it. So from that experience, coming into New Zealand and you've got a different culture where suddenly you weren't concerned that your Pākehā teachers were going to tell you off for the way you look, for the way that you identify.
Yeah.
How long did it take for that transition for you to start to feel, I'm okay?
It was probably a good couple of years, and I think, and then in saying that, you still kind of walk on tippy toes just in case, because is this a setup? Is this going to happen? I mean, my sister, she was so anti-speaking English because we were so Afrikaans raised, and there was an English area and an Afrikaans area, so there was this real anxiety and fear around it. But I think for me, when I went to intermediate school and I had the fortunate opportunity of being thrust into the heart of South Auckland in Otara. My mum was an intermediate school teacher at Clover Park Intermediate, which is now Ki Aroha, and you had Māori, Samoan, Tokalao, Niue, all of these mixed cultures that we had never heard of. And they kind of looked like us. They kind of talked a little bit and had that music and culture flavor that we had too. And it was like, this is a bit of us. This is awesome. But they're so proud of their differences too, and they really push into that, which is where I was like, okay, we need to do a bit more research. They're speaking their language and they love it. Okay, we better do a bit more of that. So I would say the building blocks was really in my intermediate years. That was now 2 years into living in New Zealand.
Wow.
And then going to high school, Papatoetoe High School. It was just the start of that area of Papatoetoe starting to be a little bit more mixed, and kind of not putting so much focus on how you look and where you're from, but more what is your skill set and what is it that you're into. And that's where my love for music and the arts and sports really started to be developed a little bit more. And so I started not focusing so much on the culture. Again, I didn't even know I was doing it back then, but then pushed into, what do I love? I love to be on stage. I'm naturally quite sporty. There's a thing called musical theatre, pushed into that. And so I think when you now subconsciously or consciously now are involved in activities that help shape you more, it kind of takes the focus off the adversity and what you'd experienced previously, because you're just too busy doing other good, beautiful things.
And obviously too, when you're having those incredible shared experiences, the concept of race is irrelevant because you're doing stuff together.
Yeah.
You're experiencing or sharing time and space with somebody as you create art.
For sure. And I mean, it also highlighted then what a disservice a government system and a political law played onto our people in South Africa, because as you say that, I think, and then how unfortunate our people didn't have that for a long time. Whereas, as you say, by merit, when you've got your skill and you're awesome and talented, well, all of those things should disappear because you're there, because you're bloody good at what you do. And so that is really where, again, you know, I probably lost focus of that hardship. Thank God, because you don't want to hold on to that for too long either. You don't deny that it was there.
Eat you up.
But instead of letting that cloud you, let's just be one. Let's just be one and just do the things that really uplift us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So when did Megan Alatini become Megan? Was that the pop stars experience?
Yeah, I don't think it was.
Or were you already there?
You know what's so funny? My mum tells us the story about going to Manukau Mall back in the day on a Thursday for late night shopping.
Oh, yeah.
And people would run up to us and ask for our autograph for myself and siblings. And it was simply because I think we looked a bit different. We had braids. You know, there was still a bit of a South African accent. Ugh, don't like it. But again, I think foundation is so important, and because we had this really embracing, positive foundation with our parents who made us feel important and would always say, you're something. We don't know what that something is, but you're something. I feel like Megan, me, I feel very lucky and grateful and blessed that I had parents that always made sure that we felt special and important. And that's whether you're at school or whether you're a lawyer or whether you're a cleaner or you're now a pop star. That doesn't really define you. That's an added extension of you, because with that, you're still an amazing person. And I just have to thank my parents for that, because they were pretty amazing. And then the collective whānau around that is, I guess, what is the essence of me.
Oh,
and it's not always all that good, because there's been some ugly and yucky stuff along the way too. But for the most part, I'm grateful for that foundation.
That's luscious. That is luscious. Such an important value as well for Whanaungatanga, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Hey. And we don't walk it alone, you know. There's this whānau in front, beside, behind you that makes and helps mould who you are.
Yeah. So do you think because of that style of upbringing and that belief in you, is that where your confidence has come from?
Definitely, most certainly. I sometimes look at people who aren't as confident and I think they're amazing and they've got talent and skills, and, you know, the shoulders are a little bit hunched over or the head's down, and I'm never ever will I encourage being arrogance. I think there's such a difference between arrogance and confidence, but my parents definitely instilled in us, put those shoulders back, head up, and I guess it's also because since you couldn't do it back there, you better do it here.
Yeah,
you know, so I feel really sad, and I think it is really unfair when there hasn't been that foundation. And while I don't want people to hold on to adverse upbringing for too long, because I feel like you get to your adult years and you now can take the bull by the horns and start redirecting your course of life if it's been a bit unfortunate. But how wonderful when you've had that base to begin with. It's almost like you've had 10 steps forward already, which is unfortunate when people haven't had that. So the confidence definitely was instilled by my parents. And if we showed overconfidence or arrogance, girl, they gave us a hiding. They would slap us upside the head to make sure, you get back down to earth, girl.
That's it. Keep grounded.
Keep grounded, be humble, and we'll show you if you're not.
Totally agree. So how did the whole process of Pop Stars happen?
Oh my gosh. So before we had the braiding whare on K Road, our whānau had a braiding whare in Papatoetoe, and that was really, again, where we met so many beautiful humans. You sit there for hours braiding someone's hair, so you're going to know each other's life story. And sadly for them, they would hear ours too. But I was always into music at school. I joined theatre sports group. I auditioned for musicals. I did every single talent quiz. And whenever I talk about that, I also remind people that I never won those damn talent quiz.
Oh, wow.
It was third, fourth, or no, thank you for attending.
Yeah.
But I had a love for music. It comes from my mum and dad's side of the family. And so my sisters actually said, hey, there's an ad in the paper. It says, do you think you've got what it takes to be a pop star? And they were like, you look kind of cool. You got the braids, a bit different. You love to sing. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and go for this audition? And it said that it was at the town hall in Auckland and they're having nationwide auditions. We're like, yeah, whatever that means. And so they really encouraged me. Actually, they forced me to go to the auditions. In fact, my sister even drove me there to make sure I'd get there. And so it was at the town hall. I lined up at the wrong place of the town hall. I was like on Queen Street, ready to go. And a line producer ran to us and said, you 10 people that are standing at the front here for the audition. I'm thinking, yeah, 1 of 10, I've got a chance. They're like, no, the entry is actually from the back. You got to get to the back where Aotea Square is.
Yeah.
Get to the back and it's like, oh my God, there's hundreds of people. Some had ghetto blasters, some had musical instruments, some had this sheet music practicing. And I'm like, there is no friggin' way that I can audition. These people look professional. They've got stuff and it's just me, my crop top and my nomad bloody platform shoes. I can sing a tune or two, but I don't even know what I'm going to sing.
Wow.
And my sister was like, you are doing this. Also at the time, I already had my daughter who was 2. And so I'm also thinking, what is this going to look like? I'm a young mom. Are they going to look down on me? Surely they're not going to want somebody in this group that's got a kid, but I will never, ever deny my daughter. I'd already made that decision when I had her. And so I kind of just had to dig deep, swallow, and entered the audition room. And I was so blank. What the hell am I going to sing? You know those moments? You've got hundreds of songs usually in your repertoire.
You can never remember a single one.
You're put on the spot at karaoke, or in this case, at the audition, and I'm like...
No, nothing. Yep.
But the one song that did come to mind was Killing Me Softly by Roberta Flack, which was one of Mum's favourite songs. It had been remade by Lauryn Hill and the Fugees. So that was it. Strumming my pain with his finger. I'm like, I can remember those words.
Yeah.
And they were kind of smiling, they were kind of happy, interviewed me, and I just spoke honestly, new out of school, I've got a daughter, I love music, would love the opportunity. And they said, cool, we'll be in touch. And it felt like forever until they were in touch. And then when they finally did get in touch with me, they said, hey, we've now come from our nationwide auditions. We have taken it down to the top 100. You're one of the top 100. Yay, amazing, awesome. I'm like, woo. And they were doing workshops. Everyone was coming together. Actually, in a church on Ponsonby Road opposite Prego. That's where we were all meeting. And I'm looking at all these beautiful young women, and you can just see that their experience. Some of them are trained and qualified, and I'm just going, oh my God, doubting myself completely, like feeling so like I don't belong in that space. But I love it. I love music. And they would put us into these little groups and, keep trialing groups of 4 or 5, would ask you, what key do you sing in and what voice are you? I don't friggin' know. I just sing. I don't know.
No way.
I just do the original, I think. And then they sent us off after a bit of a weekend workshop. And then I received a phone call to say, hey, you've made it to the top 10. We're now going to each of the top 10 to interview them in their family environment. So we're going to come to you in South or East Auckland, where I was at the time, interview you and your family, and we'll see how we go. And they came to my home. I was like, family, clean the house. Everyone be on their best behaviour. Put on your
swear.
Put on your Sunday goods.
Yeah.
We didn't swear anyway. Oh, God, my parents were so strict. There's none of that stuff. And they walked in with a camera crew and they said, hey, Megan, we've been through this process. It's been a few months now. Sorry it's taken so long. As we shared with you, we're now through to the top 10 stage. But we lied. You're in the band. And you're the first girl that we've come to announce that to. You're in the group. And I'm like, oh, my God, amazing. And like an idiot, I start crying. Yes, I'm a crier. And I said, I just want to thank my mum and dad for always, supporting me like I'm at the damn Oscars and Grammys. And that was it. I was in the group, and I was then told that there are 4 others. They wouldn't inform us who that is yet. In about a week's time, we will all meet in Auckland downtown and turn up at this time. And it was then that all the girls were told individually. I remember at the time it was Chin Chin on Key, is where we were meeting, and I walked in and there is a table of 4 other wahine. I was the last to arrive and like, oh my gosh, I remember seeing you, and that girl with the funny ears, Joe, and Eric and Carly amazing, and Kerry the beautiful blondie, and me, I'm actually in this. What the heck? So surreal, so amazing. And that was the start of TrueBliss and Pop Stars.
And it was groundbreaking as well. Nobody had done anything like this in the world.
Here's 2 Kiwi producers and directors that went, yeah, the Spice Girls have done it, but it wasn't documented end to end like this. I know our original producer and creator, Bill Taufer, he actually had seen his daughters at a birthday party with hairbrushes, singing and being a photographer. He was like, oh, let's film this, and went, maybe we should try this concept.
Wow.
And literally groundbreaking. I mean, Pop Stars went from Pop Stars to Australia and the UK.
Yeah.
Pop Stars turned into Pop Idol. Pop Idol turned into the UK Idol, USA Idol. That turned into X Factor, The Voice, and so on and so on and so on. And us little Kiwis started it all with our $5 budget.
So good. What a story.
It was such an incredible time. It was fun. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, but we just ran with it. And, here are 5 strangers pulled out of obscurity thinking, oh no, this will be cool. A couple of people will watch. Next thing, #1 show, #1 song,
Crazy.
#1 album. Everyone knows who you are. That can be really amazing. It can also be really awful.
And I was going to ask you about that. Going from, being a mum, a young mum, and loving performance and doing all that for the right reasons because it fueled you, but then suddenly being on a national stage. And it happened quite quickly.
It happened
I remember watching
overnight.
it.
Yeah.
Watching it.
For about 3 or 4 weeks, only we knew, because in that first process, it was just us and any of the other interviewees or auditionees that were a part of that process. We all had to sign NDAs. Again, had no idea what that meant. But okay, I'll zip my lip. I won't tell anyone. I probably did tell some people, but that's okay.
Family doesn't count.
But, for 3 or 4 weeks, it was just us. And then literally the first episode aired and the next day it was, oh my God, and you're this person. And it was just crazy from then on in. Anywhere we went, anything that we did was documented. Luckily, we didn't have social media the way we do now.
I reckon.
It would
be
but
intense.
once a week, our show would air. We'd wait for a week and it would be in the Herald and the Sunday Star Times and TV Guide and... Social media activity was like Throng and Thread was just starting. So at least we had time to, get over our mistake. You'd read it a week later and try and get over it again.
That's right.
Not instantaneous like now. And I think, oh my Lord, with the amount of criticism and critique that the culture of social media sometimes can bring now, I don't know if I would have been able to survive it back then.
And that is quite massive. And I know, people would talk and it's normal. You get hecklers in this industry, right? How did you all cope with that? Because, of course, a group like this is very polarising as well.
Yeah.
People will love it or not love it.
Yeah, or love to hate it.
Yeah, that's it, because there's that whole tall poppy thing in New Zealand. How did you all cope with that? Did you have support people around you, or what was it like dealing with that? Or were you kept away from that? Did you keep yourself away from that?
Monique, at the time, we didn't know what to expect. So we were really caught off guard, really. And you're right, it was polarizing at times and in so many different ways. Sometimes we were polarized or marginalized from our very own industry that we've wanted to be involved in for so long. But the music industry is saying, this is a hard-earned right. You've got to do years and years of grind and trying and live performing before you can just have a record deal and a #1 song. And here you little shitty snotty-nosed girls come and you just, get things handed to you on a silver platter. Well, it was so unfair because in our own individual rights, we may have been doing the hard slog, and who's to say my hard slog and your hard slog makes one or the other any better? But we did feel a little bit shunned by the industry for a while. And then weirdly, we had a community who loved us and just
still do.
And was so all about it. but then also we're very opinionated about what we wore and what we sang. And so what were the support mechanisms that were in place? It was us. Because only you really know what you're going through when you're one of those fivesome going through that day in and day out. And while we had incredible support from our extended families, they're not the ones hearing and reading and feeling. And so really, really, that was the bond for us girls, was going through the real amazing journey, but also the downpull at times. And it's probably why to this day, for the most part, because we're human, we have bickers and fights and things here and there. And, you know, we know that we lost one of our members by her own choice early on in our journey. But I would say it's for that very reason that we're still such close friends who see each other as sisters. We call each other the blisters.
Oh, that's just the cutest.
I know, we're so cheesy.
Oh, no, that just makes my heart happy. I was always a huge fan. Oh. So coming from an environment with your upbringing of being judged by how you showed up, was it triggering for you with TrueBliss? Did any of that come through in that experience as well?
Yeah, I don't think it was triggering so much as it had helped me build a harder exterior.
Okay, beautiful.
And perhaps I was able to deal with some of that a little bit better or in my own way, because I've had to cop it before. I've had flack, and I've had
So you're more resilient.
I'm more resilient. Again, without knowing what that term is and knowing what that looks like. But maybe also I'm a mum, so there's a young being more important than what I am. So I'm not so invested in what everyone says, even though it does hurt. And you do see and read it and so forth. But actually, I'm more worried about my kid getting fed and making sure I'm a really great mum. And my family, again, they were such fan flamers. They'd be like, you guys are amazing and you're awesome and, you look great. When you've got that, it's kind of like, well, that person who doesn't really know me, who's got something negative to say, should I really focus on what they're saying? Or should I focus on what my genuine family is saying?
Yeah.
Because trust me, they're not just telling me what I want to hear either. It would be like, well, actually, girlfriend, your braids are real untidy right now. Change that up.
Yeah.
But who do you want to really invest in when it comes to energy and where it is that you take your journey next?
Is most important.
Totally.
Yeah. So how did you balance that with being a mum? Because a lot of the people who listen and watch this podcast, they're parents too, and they're struggling. And you were young in the public eye with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. You know, how was that for you?
First of all, what did you do? God, it was really hard, because here I'm so happy to be on TV once a week, all of this, you know, stardom and being in the spotlight and what people call celebrity. Hate that term, but, you know, it is what it is. But girlfriend, we weren't getting paid. So here I was thinking, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to give my daughter all of this money and things that I haven't had. And So again, there's this misinformation where people look at you and they see that you're on telly, you've got all these nice things. But actually, because pop stars in its infancy was still a kind of trial and error thing, and there were certain measures that were not being put in place, there were months that the girls and I were not getting paid. And so how did I juggle parenthood? It was friggin' hard, because here was my own misunderstanding of, I've got a job, I'm on telly, I can give my child whatever I want to, and I can't. And I've got to now be able to still have nappies and food. Luckily at the time, her dad had just started in professional rugby, so there was that great support. So got to make a shout out for that and give credit where it's due. But the balance of wanting to make sure I'm a good parent, but also a good performer, making sure that when I turn up for rehearsals or showtime, I'm not too tired. But let's face it, I might have been up in the middle of the night singing to my daughter. And only now, 25 years on, the girls go, oh my God, Megs, we had no idea that you had to juggle that as well. Because they'd say, come for a drink and let's get on it. And I'd go, I better go back to the hotel to my daughter. But in saying that, I also do feel like she was such a blessing in disguise, because if I didn't have her, my priorities would have been different. I might have been out boozing and getting on it and drugging and sexing around. Not saying that that's what the girls were doing all the time, maybe some of the time. But my priorities were different because I had a responsibility in my child. So while it was a tough juggle, and it looked different for me than it did the other girls, it was also my saviour, I feel.
Wow.
Although I feel like I'm reliving all of that right now. Now they're old and grown and gone, and now Mama can do it.
And now it's your time. It's your time.
Although menopause makes that feel a little bit more challenging.
It's hard.
So I feel like that's a baby thing all over again.
There you go. There you go. So how did Megan evolve from that? And I've seen you go through lots of different life stages through social, because you live a public life, as do I. That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Everything that you've done with, I don't want to say 100% conviction. It's 150%. It's 200%. Everything you do, it's not just good. It's great. Like you bring this passion and this dynamic energy to everything you do. And you've gone through many different iterations of evolution. It's absolutely inspirational. It's like watching, I love Kylie Minogue. I love Kylie Minogue. And I look at her and she's a serial evolver, which is what you are as well. You're just amazing. So who did Megan become then, and who has she continued to become?
Thank you for the compliment, first of all, because while I know I've always given my all, and I'm one of those people that if you're going to do something, go and do it great. And if it doesn't work out, well, then at least you know that it's not for want of not trying. You've put it all in. But I've had my struggles. I've had my challenges. I've been, at a time where I've had to let my career take a little bit of a seat while I did the parenting and moved overseas. And I've had moments where I've pulled my hair out and things aren't going quite as I want to, feeling like, I'm kind of doing certain elements of my life a disservice. But that's part of life and it's part of growing. And I've always said, success is falling down and getting back up. And man, have I fallen down and then gone, get yourself up and now bring it up higher and higher. But again, by no means of my own only. I've had a community, I've had supporters, I've had a whānau. So the evolution of me is because I come with a tribe. I've come with a tribe of supporters. I come with colleagues and friends. And so every step of the way, more often than not, Monique, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But they say push into the uncomfortable space, feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. Well, I'm still sitting here shit scared day to day.
Yeah, every day going, what am I going to do today?
Yeah. And it's also, I guess, where I will give myself credit, it's to be brave enough to take a risk. Yeah. Okay, the entertainment isn't going so well. Pull back on the formidable years of that foundation. You know that your parents have said you can do whatever it is that you want to. How are you going to know if you don't give it a good go? So let me try some work in the corporate space. Let me go and apply for my first job at Air New Zealand and my CV looking like a dog probably typed it because it was all over the show.
And how do you go from reality TV and pop star to applying to become an Air New Zealand flight attendant? But I remember seeing this on social and you going, this has actually been one of my dreams. And you did it, but you didn't just do it. You ended up becoming a trainer, right?
I did. But also, let me tell you, in my 7th form yearbook, we had on the back pages, how you've got your mug shot and it says, Megan, Goldhouse prefect, what is she going to do in life? Their prediction. And the school prediction was that I was going to be an entertainer or an actress. And in brackets, they said thingy, as in Jason Gunn's sidekick, the assholes. And then they asked me, what would you like to become? And I said singer, actress, or air hostess, as it was called back then. Still have the book. And so, years later after Japan and coming back to New Zealand when the media and entertainment industry was different, and now I'm having to forge a different career because my hubby at the time, his work or his rugby was taking a different course and I've got to, my kids are a little bit older now. It's my turn to hold the fort. What am I going to do? Pushed into, what is it that I've always wanted to do? I love people. I love travel. I love culture. We're not getting paid to fly around so much anymore. Okay. I said I wanted to be an air hostess. Air New Zealand were recruiting at the time. Applied for my first ever job. Wow. Did my CV, as I said, so bad. I've never been a very good admin girl. And luckily someone saw, I don't know if it was the desperation or the skill set in me. The potential. I'll take that. Yeah. But I have to make a shout out to Leah McDonnell, who actually interviewed me, and she was like, oh, you'll be great for this job. Go for it. And I became just, I'm not going to say just, because I'm a big believer, and I don't like it when people say, I'm just to this. Cabin crew is an amazing job, and I learned so much from it. But I have to say, in the beginning, the brand and marketing team were like, you can't speak about cabin crew, and you can't speak about the airline. We've got brand restrictions and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, wow. I just want to say good things about the airline. I just want to say good things about the job. But I think you think I'm an imposter and that maybe I'm doing a behind the scenes type of article. I'm not. So I literally had to be head down, bum up, do the mahi hard out to prove that I genuinely wanted to be there. And eventually, when that shone through,
yep.
Again, I was seen by some really wonderful leaders who said, you're good with people, there's some connection, there's a space in the learning and development space. Never even knew what that meant. And put me through put me through some training and set me up for some courses. And I became a cabin crew trainer and then cabin crew pilots and engineers, specializing in the A320 aircrafts and then the Dreamliner. And again, yes, there had to be some skill and some talent and some risk, but it was also about other people seeing you for what your worth is and for what your talent is. And, we talk about tall poppy syndrome, and I don't like the fact that it is part of our culture. And I'm
absolutely
so into abolishing that and making sure we speak more to the other side of it, because in my experience, there have been the opposite of that, where people have helped uplift me. They've helped give me opportunities.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They were able to nurture and mold me into now where I am now in this corporate space where I work in developing and growth of people and leaders and well-being. And I wouldn't have been able to do that to the degree that I can now, was it not for that early start with Air New Zealand. And again, I'm so super grateful for it, because I learned so much. I had to, because I was like, I'm not going to stand here and make a fool of myself. So the studying, again, here I am with books and manuals and, okay, kids are fed, you're all good. Okay, mama's got to learn.
Yeah, wow.
But it's also my way nowadays of talking to things that, again, we didn't really talk about so much back then. Transferable skills. Actually, there are mums and dads out there who have given up their careers or who have been stay-at-home parents who undermine themselves sometimes. And I've done recruitment and mentoring where people say, well, I'm just a mum, and this says that you need leadership skills, and, oh, well, that's not for me. And I've been there. And we now know that leadership skills means you're organized, you can multitask, you're on time, you know how to set up a budget. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is parenthood. That is motherhood. That is CEO 101.
You're not wrong.
And these days, with the change in industry, with the change of how our work environment and working at new ways of working is now, there is such a new way of looking at qualifications that is not qualifications as we know it, but is more lived experiences. And I'm so happy that work environments, be it corporate, government, public, community, have had to look at what does that look like these days? And again, not to push aside tertiary university qualifications. I think that's amazing. But actually, there's also a place for those of us that weren't able to go down that route. And I'm really super happy and proud to say that I work in corporate environments where there's now being space made for that. So if you're looking for a job, come to me. I might be able to help.
And I want to talk about that. So you went from Air New Zealand to a business called, it was right?
Consulting,
correct.
Right.
Yeah. AU as in I in Māori.
Yes, I, me, you, us, kind of that collective form. I was very fortunate that I had an incredible leader at Air New Zealand who ran the learning and development side there. And during COVID and lockdowns, we really had to, the old word of pivot and be agile in our new ways of working. And a few of us had the ability to do training virtually online.
Great.
Before it was a thing.
And that's it.
So my role was performance coach. And I know that part of the reason why I kept my job during that downturn of all industries, but in this case, in New Zealand, and with disestablishments, was that I was able to hold on to my role because I could train people virtually. And it was at that time that Gloria Yu, who was just this incredible incredible trailblazer when it comes to business and learning and development, contacted myself and a couple of colleagues and said, hey, things are changing. Cultural capability is needed in many spaces, leadership training, and all of that fits under wellbeing, diversity and inclusion, but with a Te Ao Māori focus.
Beautiful.
That's really needed.
Beautiful.
And with our skill set collectively and our different strengths, why don't we form a business and go and pitch to other organisations? Because if Air New Zealand needs it, maybe other companies need it as well. So we went out hustling and we formed O Consulting with just a few of us and then pitched our services to the likes of Fonterra, Fletcher, and New Zealand Post, Merck Sharp and Dome, and just started really slowly. And O Consulting are doing fantastic, in particular in that Te Ao Māori space. I've stepped out and really let those where that's their strength continue on. I also needed a break because I was going through all sorts of drama in my own life. And I needed to focus on me a little bit more and had the support of the O Consulting whānau to do so. So took some time out and then just learned that actually I could perhaps contract and do this type of work for myself when the timing is right. So I was able to work for a company called Findex, which is accounting, and they do legal work and HR. They're pretty amazing. Again, a wonderful wahine. Missy Vining said, hey, I think you've got some stuff we could use here. You've got some skills.
Wow.
So I worked with a milk truck company, Southern Milk Transport, and did HR training, bit of wellbeing stuff, then did the same for the produce company. And most recently, I've just been so fortunate to work with an Australian company called Ethos Quality Management, owned by a Kiwi boy from Waiuku, that goes worldwide and kind of sees where are the gaps in terms of leadership skills or cultural capability or well-being and D&I. And so we go and we do psychological safety reviews and really are the voices of the employees to say, hey, you guys are doing this really well, or actually you're not doing this so great.
Ball here,
Where can we as experts, or where do we find the experts that can really impart some incredible knowledge, training and upliftment to people who need it the most.
And the employees need a voice.
They do need a voice.
And it's because they're scared.
And many frontliners often feel like they can't, or they haven't even been asked the question, are you okay? And how do you see things? And so to be able to be that representation for others and be the messenger and then hold organisations accountable of this is how we can do it better, because we know intentionally you've wanted to, but again, maybe we don't know how to, and what's best practice globally. I feel very fortunate that I now get to work in that space almost as a mentor coach, we call it a consultant, but just making sure that Aotearoa businesses are doing really good by their people. And if we're not, how do we do it better?
That's it. He tangata.
He tangata. People.
Absolutely. So if you think about this whole journey, this whole chat that we've had, and I love this stage in the podcast because I get to hear the whole backstory and up till right now with this great work you're doing. If you think back from little Megan through to all these evolutions of Megan to who you are now and the great work that you do with people and the way you make change in people's lives through the work that you do. If somebody's listening to this podcast, what would be your message you want people to take away?
Sure.
Through your lived journey?
Yeah. Awesome. First of all, I do want to say that I don't know if it's so much that I've imparted that on other people as much as I've learned so much from the people I've had the privilege to work with. Because often they will say, thank you for helping me with this role or the extra mentoring, but God damn, if I receive so much in return. So tautoko out to anybody that's been a part of my journey to help again mold me into the person that I am today. I don't know who I'm going to be in 5 or 10 years' time and beyond. A good person, I hope, because that is of absolute value to me. But if I did have a message to anyone out there, it is just find your true, authentic self. Be you. Find that skill set. You know, people go, oh, you're such an incredible singer, and I'm not. And I'm like, thank God you're not. Because I don't want all of us to have the same skills, because then I wouldn't have a job and you wouldn't have a job. Find your sense of purpose. Find your strength. And then instead of talking about it, do something about it. And it may not work the first time. You may not feel like you're winning every time. Trust me, I haven't always. But there comes a point where you just know I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And that feels bloody awesome.
And this is what I love about this podcast. Every single time I get some moment of wisdom. So I thank you for that.
Oh, I thank you. And, these moments of wisdom, it's so shared. And I thank you for giving me the space to talk and share about my journey.
It's just amazing.
I want to make it really clear it isn't always smooth sailing and we don't always talk about that. So I always want to encourage us. Also be real about the challenges, be real about the speed bumps, because I think it's actually because of that we grow in strength. But for you to give people a voice and to share, and hopefully someone out there gains something from it. I know I have today, because you've made me look a little bit deeper and, what is it? That's a question I haven't been asked before. Beautiful. So thank you so much for that. And it just helps encourage me too to keep doing what we do.
And lady, all I'm going to say is you need your own podcast.
Well, that's why I was just going to say, next time, it's happening, it's coming.
It's coming.
And I would love to have you on my show as well. But thank you so much. To be continued,
That's it. Now, Megan, if people do want to reach out to you and you said you offered them, if they're struggling to find a JOB, they need to contact you. How can they get in touch if they need that help, support, that guidance, that wisdom that you share, or if a workplace wants you to come in and look at culture and diversity and communication, because that's what it's about too.
And having a bit of fun along the way too.
How do people get in touch with you? Obviously, I'll share links around the podcast on whatever platform you're on, but how can they get in touch?
Awesome. I am so original, so I've got this really creative name with everything. It's simply Megan Alatini. So Messenger, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not so great at, the TikTok side of things yet, but I'm getting there. But I just always use my name. That's pretty much my brand these days. We've got the Megan.Alatini at ethosqualitymanagement.co. Longest email ever. But just find me on social media. I love to talk to people. I don't always have all the answers, but I can help people find it. And, together let's collaborate a bit more. And just, at the moment people feel in a bit of a lull. I know that there's opportunity coming, and how is it that we help find that for each other? Oh, let's do it. Let's do it.
Amazing. I have so loved having you here.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I am now a better person for having you in the studio.
It's a two-way street, girlfriend. Thank you.
Blown away.
Who would have thought, after Johnsonville and Porirua, here we are.
Go Wellington. Go Wellington. I want to thank you today for watching, for listening, and for being part of the chat. I'd love to know too what's resonated with you. And remember, if you want help, if you want support, get in touch with Megan. The details are somewhere around this video. And if you've loved this too, if you've got something out of it, share the love. Feel free to like, share, subscribe. I'm told I have to tell you that. It's part of the job. So please do it. Let's get these good messages and these good conversations out there. There's a lot of heaviness. There's a lot of challenges out there in the world. And the only way we can change that is to send out these whispers of change, growth and inspiration, and you're part of that. So Megan, thank you so much for being part of
welcome.
Bring it in.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being part of the chat. I have loved it. Like I said, I feel like a better person for having listened.
And me too.
To you.
Thank you so much.
You are energizing, you are inspiring, and thank you for your openness and your sharing of your stories. You're such a gifted storyteller. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. And don't forget, keep tuning in for what's to come with TrueBliss. 25 years, album on vinyl. Just saying that is such a shameless plug, but I have to.
No, do it. There is nothing wrong with it, girl. Nothing wrong with it. I want to say a big thank you to Pete behind the scenes as well. Pete couldn't do it without you because I don't know how to do any of the production.
Neither.
And, and again, thanks to you guys for watching. You've been amazing. You've been amazing. You've been amazing. Everyone is amazing. Stay magnificent. Be you. There is no one youer than you. Dr. Seuss said it and I'm echoing it today. This is your sign that you are amazing. You are enough. I am Monique Bradley. He kai kōrero aho. I'm a storyteller and so are you. So tell more stories because stories matter. Make your message meaningful. Ka kite anō e noho ora.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
That was amazing.
You are wonderful.
You are. That was
so
amazing.
much fun.
So good.
Gee, talk about.
I know. I'm waiting for Pete to say cut now.
Cut.